again with another one. This one is the final version. Took me a great deal to get to this point. Uh, this one kind of went off theme and made it my own personal version, and I feel it's the best version. Team, I was trying to wrap my head around most of the archetype cards, but it simply wouldn't do. I say one of the things it got going for it kind of got that protagonist energy. Usually, all the new leaders got an alternative awaken. This, all you gotta do is have 2 energy, which is pretty insane. 2 energy and spirit boost. That's not too much of a requirement. But if you don't know, this version of Jiren is built around Z unisons and spirit boosting. So we kind of had most of the synergies for the deck around that. But on its backside, you can reduce an power skill by 1 red from your Z deck, but more into that later. I built this to either cycle or plus to hit you with our big bomb later in the game. Let's just show you the whole thing at once, because that's what most of you here for. And on that, for my in and outers, please leave with the like, subscribe, but all that. This is the full list, my Z deck, and this is my side deck. Pretty simple and straightforward. I say, since it's back at 4 now, why not play it? It's still, in my opinion, one of the best red unisons to ever be made. So we're going to run it in one of the best red unison decks, because this Jiren has cards that no other red leader has, and it makes certain other effects pretty good. This is just a tech I've seen in a lot of lists, but it's pretty good for mid game or early pressure, depending on how you want to go. This was the tech of the century. First effect doesn't matter, the last effect doesn't matter. What matters is this limit 1, which the limit 1 states when you use a spirit boost effect. Let me just highlight that better. You get to replace the marker and put this under there, under your unison, which is amazing. And on top of that, you draw a card. So at first this was like 56, 57. I'm like, many days and hours, I'm like, we're gonna make this 50. It's gonna flow like butter, and we're gonna be optimal about it. So, and with this is kind of like a pseudo Dragon Ball for my spirit boost mechanic instead of the Dragon Ball mechanic. So it's like a free cycle whenever I spirit boost without losing the marker. Essentially, that is his purpose in here. And this 50 cards turns into like a 46 card version that's just smooth and fast. Then we got some of our defense for the deck. Gohan is just the red staple. Same thing with the Yamcha, and these 2 counterplays has some great synergies with this Piccolo unison. When you set it up with the window 1 and window 2, then the auto, which I forgot to mention, best auto in the game for unisons, because it keep proccing. If you want to defend, we're going to take it out on your board. And we're running 17s. Like I said before, I want most of my deck to draw me a card or cycle. And following that up, we running 2 of the boss to go with it. Half of my deck draw the other half of the deck, so 2 is a fine number and I don't need to use it right away. And also he's turned into a barrier blocker. which is notable, especially under dense. And speaking of blockers, we have adequate defense. So basically, this helps keep the field in check as well as unisons in check. We got a lot of unison heat in here. Funny enough, this is like one of the archetypal type of decks that hate on unisons and also has unison protection. Outside the pick roll, but we'll get to that. You got a pen, well not plus U minus, essentially. That is its function. That's why we run it. And it can trigger its effect on your turn and the opponent's turn. Broly, it just pressure and it replaces itself. A lot of synergy, especially with my unison. For the -2. But this is just pressure to replace itself. This helps us close out the games against blue and green and sometimes yellow. This one we were running because this in around unison. This lets me use it as soon as I establish a unison, which is really vital. And when it gets to that point in the game where I'm trying to close out, I'm usually at 4 or less, so this helps me filter the dead cards in my hand that I can combo. So I run that 2-2 split, and I usually like the 2-2 split. Godly Power. I think this is the best generic overrealm besides the instead of, more importantly, that Vegeta everybody's running. Most of my deck minuses things to oblivion, so I don't really need Vegeta to work. I want to draw into more power cards, and that's why we chose the overrealm that we did. And it's a 30k, so it's gonna at least eat minimum 2 to 3 cards out your hand on swing. Alright, SCR of choice. There is no wrong answers, but for the way I built this, I felt this was the most optimal. And for like traditional lists that stay true to the archetype, I think this will be the best SCR, since this reduces its cost depending on the markers on your Z unison, which our Z unisons have Empower, which this exemplifies. The only takeaway I would say is you gotta wait to turn 4 to use it, but this has a lot of staying and stopping power. The other good honorable mentions is like the Shenron, the Pen unison, not unison, but the Pen SCR. Any black SCR generally like the cooler or in the red. There's not a lot of wrong answers you can use for SCR choices. Don't let anybody tell you different. You just gotta see how it fits in the deck, and if it makes sense and it synergizes and works for your playstyle, that's the SCR for you. Then we got the usual hate on your Z energy type strategy with the explosive dance and omen, which is generally becoming a staple in most people's red inside, even though it's kind of weak on the surface, most popular opinion, but I still think it's pretty strong, especially when you back it up with a negate behind it just to keep them from attacking you. And I say this is a negate that's a +1, which is pretty strong. And also you can combo it with the Great Saiyaman and Nick of Time. Just there's so many unique scenarios you can set up with this deck, and at the same time it's pretty clean and efficient. That's how I like to build my decks. That I usually like to take to tournaments and whatnot, and it's gonna be casual competitive, has a casual compatibility to it too. Man, my words. This is my tech. You don't have to run it, but in a inside of red, this was like used to be one of red's tried and true. This made your opponent be combo efficient because during your turn, your opponent has to be, or have to keep in mind that they're 5k less on one of your swings and use it like on like one of your criticals or one of your double strikes. That really makes a difference and makes them use even more combo power to not take the damage. And this is what I came with for my main deck, which is pretty solid. Z deck. Simple, easy, 1 energy, Z unison. Just to set up my Vegeta. More than likely, that Empire 3 gonna go off to make my Vegeta SER 3. Also, the leader reduces the Pacific cost, which this is a 0 energy, but the Empire is gonna kick in and put it on 3 markers for 0 energy. That's kind of like the plus to the leader having that effect. Originally, in my first draft, when I was reading all the cards, I was gonna build a deck around him. I usually cut everything else just to focus on getting him out consistently. Turn 2, turn 3, depending on if you go first or second with the energy marker. But I leaned back off that idea and chose this one instead, just for ease of use and not having to need pieces or search and setup. Cause like I'm really iffy on combo decks that need too many pieces, given our mulligan rule. Which, if it was reverted, I would happily take some liberties and lean much more into these archetype combo decks that you synergize with your pieces. But until that happens, it's half of it gotta go. I'll just say that. But continuing on, we got Divinity, potentially a dual attack double striker that gets through barrier. This another card that pops through your big bodies. Also, it boosts itself up, which can trigger the pen. Also, a lot of these cards, or there's a lot of hidden boost ups that let you trigger your pen, like the launching the Mighty Blast, etc. This is just in here for time. Need to burn and produce a board. This because of the androids. This, I like this because this can eat through token negate without having the token negate eat through 2 battle card swings or 2 important swings. Also, it builds you Z energy, and we're running the androids. But you either play one or the other for the situation. Then we have the Vegeta. Gotta have at least one of the most dominant Z red cards to ever be printed. But gotta respect it, and also triggers pen, builds the energy, and like that was one of the issues with the archetype deck. I seen a lot of lists and they was running like 12 to 16 main deck unisons, and I'm like, you have to like kind of cycle that with the quickness or charge it or something, because that's dead combo power, and that's how we lose. I would say if they would have gave this Jiren the cooler treatment where I can combo my unisons for 5k, this might have been easily top 5 deck in the game. Easily. Free. It doesn't even have to be every unison. It could be those unison with a power of 1. Not too broken. Locked into this leader. But hopefully, I'm hoping Jiren gets a Z leader, a generic Z leader, because I think that's all that's missing with this. But his spirit boost effect is pretty good enough to swing into Z leaders and also trigger out our pin. Because that was the one thing I was trying to wreck my brain on. How do I trigger it on my turn and their turn? But this is one of the other ways that we do that. I was floating between 3 and 4, but the temptation of 50 card decks was too tempting. The side deck's pretty standard with the Broly, and this is kind of like non-standard, but more and more people are leaning back towards it. Can't wait for this other video closer to the end of the month when it's gonna touch on the essentials and my thoughts on the game, but stay tuned for that. Violent Rays, because I got a lot to say. Real talk. But this used to be great. You see the errata to 30 before? It was 20. 20Ks, unisons, or battle cards, lock them down. But after 30Ks would make me like, ooh. But it's relevant any turn after turn 3, because that's when most decks dropping a 8 drops, because Bandai has been on an 8 drop printing spree just cause of balancing and power scaling. But that's what it is for that. Koizukai Mechanical Courage, just for like variety of things. Same with this. I don't really have much barrier removal, but I really don't care because I'm just pressuring the face. This, everybody been having a gripes in the community about this, but I still think it's decent, and there are synergies in this deck for how I play my package where it comes up. Hopefully we'll get that in the gameplay videos. I'm just going to keep this as a separate video for the time being, see how it adjusts. Try to get some pre-side games too, just to show you what I would pre-side, because like mostly I won't really touch too much besides maybe these and this, maybe depending on the matchup. Most of the framework I would keep exactly the same. But that's another topic from your utility cards in a deck that's easy side deck out from your main strategy. You don't want to make that less consistent. But this version is kind of like an open box, so you got some flexibility with that depending on what you need. But generally that's how it goes. But this smileless, tell me how you like it, test it out. I promise it won't steer you wrong. This is a very solid, strong toolbox Jiren leader that I think you will grow into liking. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And stay tuned for the gameplay videos. They'll be in the playlist. Definitely got a lot of grinding to do with this list. And a lot to show. Later.